Yay!
Yay! What is up, everybody? Happy Monday!
It's Monday.
Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 211. Oh,
We're getting up there.
Yeah, I was gonna mouth the words.
Fine.
We are getting up there. Very excited about tonight's show. Our guest, this is the first time we've had this guest on. I'm excited about it because he's been making a splash in the ultra scene in the last few months, but really in the last few years. He's been doing some pretty awesome things. And I have to say, making a splash is also an understatement because this guy rocks the Speedo. And I am impressed.
That was a good splash, swim,
Thank you.
Speedo.
I've been working on that one.
Very impressed.
All day. But he's not just known for the Speedo. He is fast. Fast is an understatement as well.
One of the fastest.
One of the fastest. In fact, he just placed second at the Quicksilver 50K behind Rob Krar. They battled it out through the race, and I can't wait to talk to him about that race, his build up to these ultras, and what he's doing now to prepare for the 2018 Western States 100. It's going to be a battle in Squaw. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be fun. So tonight we are joined by Coree Woltering. It's awesome to have him on the show finally. So we're going to sit down with him and talk to him. I hope everyone's having a great Monday. We appreciate you taking the time out tonight to join us on Ginger Runner Live. So sit back, relax, grab your beverage of choice. Shall we commence?
Get into it?
Here we go. Ginger Runner. Yes,
Yay!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 211. 211. Gonna be a fun show. Very excited about tonight. Not only because I'm enjoying really good beer.
Mine's better.
I like both of the beers.
Yeah.
Avery.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, good choice.
Yeah.
But our guest tonight is going to be a blast. Badass ultra runner, been making a name for himself over the last couple of years. Last couple of months, he's been doing some really awesome things, placing second at Quicksilver 50K. Quicksilver is one of my favorite races that I've done in the past. The 100K is very, very difficult. I still have nightmares about it, but it just happened, and we had to get this guy on. Coree Woltering is going to be joining us on tonight's show. I'm excited to talk to him all about his preparation for the Western States 100, which is coming up, in weeks. We're actually counting down by weeks now. It always comes up so fast. I am not the only one here on the show. I also am joined by...
Hi guys, my name is Kim, and as usual, I'll be in the chat room. We are live, so if you guys have questions for Coree, please pop them into the chat room. We will be taking them throughout the hour.
Yes, I just realized that we also had a great comment from the Negative Splits podcast. What's up, guys? Really appreciate you guys jumping into the chat room. We have a question from them that we'll be sure to ask during the main show. So thanks, guys. Appreciate that little tip there as well. Before we get into the show, we do have some individuals to thank, and first, our Patreon supporters. We have a bunch at all varying levels. So thank you to everyone who's been supporting us on Patreon from $1 on up, month in and month out. You are the reason that the show is able to happen week after week. We're able to do videos, reviews, films, all that good stuff, traveling. It is all because of you, so thank you very much. 3 individuals in particular at our top tier we'd love to shout out at the beginning of every one of our Ginger Runner Lives. They deserve it. They are wonderful human beings. They're ultra runners themselves, which is awesome to talk about. Their regular viewers are often in the chat room, and I believe we have some of them in the chat room tonight. Mm-hmm. So big shouts outs.
So many shouts.
Shouts for everyone. Chris Lee from Hong Kong. Chris is an awesome dude, runner, and the creator of Trailblazer over there in Hong Kong, which is a community that showcases the local trails in Hong Kong.
And Chris ran a local race there, I think, with his daughter this weekend as well. So congratulations on that.
Awesome to hear about that from Chris. And Chris also raised over $10,000 for a local charity in Hong Kong that benefits at-risk youth. We did a screening of Where Dreams Go to Die over there, and he just did some wonderful things for the local community, and it was really great to work with him on that. And he sent a bunch. I realized that all the things that he sent some cool gifts that I wanted to show.
They're all out of reach right now.
They're all out of reach, but one of them is a giant Gary Robbins poster.
We can maybe grab it for the post show.
Yeah, we'll grab it for the post show, so Patreon supporters can get a chance to see it. But it is enormous, but it's awesome. So thank you, Chris Lee. Really appreciate it. Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They're a web design company. They do incredible websites for big corporations and even individuals. They're redoing the Ginger Runner website currently, and they're doing an amazing job. Just did some revisions on some things. I think the next stage is going to be pretty much near done. We're like getting there. Very excited to share it with everyone. But Rick is an ultra runner training for Sinister 7 and Fat Dog 120. Rad dude. We'll have to get him on the show. Talk to him about what it's like to balance that full-time job plus all the training, because he's doing a ton of training right now. And finally, a big shout out to Mr. Brian Sands, longtime supporter at the top tier. Brian ran his first marathon last October, currently training for his first 50K, already talking about what's beyond that. We've got a chance to run with Brian a bunch and train
Brian
with him.
also raced this weekend as well.
He did, and that was awesome to see. The Sky series run. There was it's like
Brian's in the chat room. He can pop the name into that.
Brian, I keep wanting to say Skyline, but I think it's Skyline to See is the race entry that we're giving away in the post show tonight. We have our winner, or we haven't picked the winner. We're gonna pick it live. But yeah, Brian, let us know what the race is. You just finished this weekend. It looked hard, very, very difficult, a lot of gain. But shout out to those three gentlemen. Really appreciate the support. Okay, here we go. Without further ado, he's been waiting patiently. It's like, why are these guys talking? What the hell? Just introduce me. He's not like that at all. He's very, very kind. Without further ado, Mr. Coree Woltering.
Yay! Welcome.
Hey. Thanks for having me, you guys.
You got it, Corey. You can't hear it or see it, but the live audience, they're cheering loudly for you.
On their keyboards.
On their keyboards.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's great to have you on the show. We haven't had you on yet. But I like just going through your results, and I've been following you for a while, just kind of a fan of what you've been able to do. How did you get your start in ultra running? Because you haven't been ultra running for too long. It's been a couple years. But what drew you to the sport? What was kind of your big intro?
Yeah, so ultras just kind of happened, I guess. I was asked to pace one of my friends at the Leadville 100 for like a 10, 12-mile section of it or whatever. And I decided that I wanted to quit racing triathlons and get into more trail and ultra running. And I got a challenge on Instagram where somebody challenged me to a 50K. And I had not even run a marathon at this point. I'm wow. Okay, this sounds like fun. So I signed up for it and trained for it. And then a few months later did my first 50K. But that was like, I ran a marathon in between. There was like a training run. And yeah, just kind of all worked out.
So the ultra was your first, I guess, sanctioned distance of a marathon or greater. So you kind of bypassed the marathon as far as a sanctioned race is concerned.
Well, I did a marathon first, and then like 8 weeks later did the 50K.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that Leadville was kind of your introduction. So you're coming from triathlon. You have a triathlon background. What was it like to be at an event like Leadville? Because the spectacle is huge. There's a ton of support there, and that 100-miler is difficult. So what was it like to kind of get that full submersion into ultra?
Yeah, that was pretty crazy, actually. I mean, I didn't even really know what the Leadville 100 was as I was being set up to pace it. Mm-hmm. I had never been to Leadville before. I had never had like super high altitude experience either. Because I moved from Illinois to Boulder thinking I was going to become a professional triathlete. And then that just didn't necessarily work out. But yeah, so Leadville, just the pre-race, athlete and crew meeting and everything that you do. I'm like, I didn't know there are this many people that would pay money to go run through the woods. Like, this seems crazy. But it ended up being just the greatest experience.
That's awesome. I want to remind everyone that we are, of course, live. We are taking live questions. I believe, Kim, you've already pulled one.
Yeah, well, a couple things here. We do have the Rabbit crew in our chat room tonight, and they just wanted to give Corey a shout out as well. And since we were kind of talking about how your lead up into ultra, there was a great question from the Negative Splits podcast earlier on. Mm-hmm. They asked, has Corey finally found his calling after transitioning from track in college to triathlon to the ultra world? Seems to be settled and at peace now.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll drink because it's going to dovetail kind of into what I wanted to talk about, which is, of course, that transition from collegiate to triathlon and now into ultra. With Negative Splits question, do you find that this is it? This is the home, and are you happy?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and honestly, I do feel like this is what I was supposed to do. Triathlon, it was fun. I just never had the swim that I needed to be like super competitive at the front end. And so that was always like the limiting factor. And I mean, I was in the pool 6 or 7 days a week. I was swimming 20 to 30,000 yards a week. And I still was I was not getting faster. I'd exit the water and be totally fine. Like, like just swam for 32 minutes or whatever in a half Ironman and wouldn't feel at all tired. But I mean, I couldn't get any quicker than that. And then when it came to marathons, I enjoy marathons. They are fun. It's probably my favorite distance to run on the road, but I'm not one of those people that can focus on, say, 2 marathons a year. So, because like if you want to run a fast marathon, you're going to run maybe one in the spring and one in the fall, or like winter and early summer or something like that. But for ultras, it's just amazing how, 50K can build into a 50 miler that can build into a 100 miler. And you can actually race multiple times in a year. So, yeah, I mean, I do feel like ultras are what I should be doing.
And I'm just going to jump in really quick because there was a second part to the Negative Split podcast question, and it was actually directed towards you, Ethan. They asked, will Ethan wear a Speedo at his next race?
Listen, I didn't want to divulge this yet. I was thinking I was going to save it for the end of the episode. But Corey, I'm going to wear a Speedo for all of my ultras from here on out. That's all a lie. No, I don't think people want to see that. At all. The people wouldn't want to see me shirtless or even sleeveless. I think would scare people away. I have been wondering, I was going to talk to you about this separately. I'm like, man, this would be a really great video because, listen, you can pull it off. You come from triathlon, you've got like the tri body, and you're an elite runner, and there's like something about it that an elite runner, you watch them wear something like a Speedo.
Like, they look cool.
They look fit. Or like Tim Walmsley with the holes in the shirt and the crop top. You're like, oh man, they're making it cool. They're making these things cool. So Corey, you're making the Speedo cool. You make me want to wear a Speedo. I know I'm not the only male ultra runner that's probably thinking that, like, I got to do it at least once. How does that make you feel, like, to know that you are, in a sense, a trendsetter in matter of speaking?
I guess it's kind of fun. I mean, it's funny because the first time I wore the Speedo was actually at a race in Florida. And the reason was I forgot my racing shorts. So I had, Speedos with me because I was going to be going to the beach. And then I'm like, well, this will work, I guess. I had training shorts with me, but I just didn't want to wear the same shorts for training as I would racing because I don't do that. And so it just became a thing.
It has become a thing, and there's already the hashtag, and I put the title in the video today because I love it. I got to give Andy Jones-Wilkins credit for it. I believe it was him, unless it was Corey that came up with it, but Speedo in Squaw as opposed to See You in Squaw. I think it's great. I think it's fitting. And honestly, Corey, are you going to rock it at States?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I love it. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, all the logos that could go on it, and just... It could have so many amazing, like, the pictures that are going to come out of there, the videos.
Rabbit does say that they are working on a Rabbit Speedo called Man Buns.
Yes.
Oh, this is going to be great. We're learning a lot on the show already. Okay, I promised Corey that we wouldn't talk about the Speedo for the entire show. I gave him a pre-show, like, listen, we have to mention it, but I don't want the whole show to be about it. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your build over the last few years. There was a good question in the chat room, and I'll also kind of use it a little bit in this question, just regarding your training as a collegiate athlete, as a triathlete. How has that training adapted to ultra training? It's a different sport. It's a different breed of athlete, and it requires different training. But how have you used some of what you've learned in the past to really make you a dynamite runner here in ultra?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess in college, I was more of a 400 meter, 800 meter runner, or at least starting out anyway. It just, I still had to run cross country as well. So cross country was 8K for D3. So, I mean, training back then, I don't really feel like anything was like majorly focused. And it was more just, well, he can run the 400, he can run the 800, but we still need him to run the 8K. So it was just kind of like a weird mix of like well, you're running the 800 and the 400, but it's more from like a distance background base type of thing. But the weird thing was I wasn't super high mileage in college. I was like 40 miles a week. So I don't feel like everything fully meshed while I was in college. And then going into triathlon, I had a great coach, and I could run pretty well at a lot of different distances. Sprint triathlon was always just a little too short for me because the swim it's just, you have to be so fast. Olympic distance was good, and then half Ironman was great. And I was actually doing the half Ironman my last 2 years of college while I was still running the 400 and the 800 on the track and running cross country in the fall. So
those are like completely different mediums. I mean, a half Ironman and then doing 800s and stuff on the track. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it really, like, my training just never really seemed to like fit what I was doing, but it always just kind of worked. And then when I started doing the marathon stuff, I'm like, this is actually kind of fun. And the training seems to fit more what I'm doing, and everything's fine, you know, but then going into like 50K, 50 miles, all of a sudden I'm like, no, this is really fun. And so I really enjoy training for 50 miles. And I've loved every minute of the build to Western so far.
That's awesome. I mean, I know that you've run Tunnel Hill a number of times. You've won Tunnel Hill a number of times, that 50-mile distance. Is there a specific type of trail run that draws you in? Are you into flat and fast, or hilly and fast, technical, non-technical? What's kind of your draw at this point?
You know, I like technical stuff, but I'm not the best at it anymore. Like when I was living in Leadville, I used to be pretty good at running more technical stuff. I fall on trails all the time now. I mean, like literally every trail run I go on, I go down at least once. So technical is probably not my strength. Flat and fast seems to be what I've run well at, but I can also run pretty decent on more semi-technical, not like crazy technical. Like the second half of American River, I wouldn't call it crazy technical, but it's not an easy second half of the course.
Yeah, from what I've heard from people, it has technical sections. It's up and down. It's not like the first half. Yeah.
And so like American River, that's a great course for me, I think. Even stuff like Quicksilver, though, I think Quicksilver is a great course. It's not overly technical, but yet there's still 6,000 feet of elevation gain.
Right. Yeah, like that's one thing I definitely look at Quicksilver, and that's all I remember is just the amount of gain. It's not necessarily technical. There are some technical sections, especially on the 100K, but overall, it's a lot of gain. So how are you then? By the way, Kim had to lock up the door because our dog Gus is about getting ready to freak out because he's seeing birds out in the yard. It often happens where we have to kind of shut the door and make sure he doesn't see the birds. So how are you going to, or how are you already adapting your body and your training to get ready for not only the up and down of states? It's obviously a net downhill. The distance itself is a brutal one, but it's a lot of gain. There's still 19,000 feet of gain, and the altitude. So what are you doing to train for something like this so specifically?
Yeah, so living in Illinois, it can become a little bit of a challenge to focus on a bigger West Coast race, you know. So, I mean, honestly, we just kind of focused on American River as like the bigger opening of the season. And that was like, okay, you have to be able to run fast. You still have to be able to climb. You have to be able to handle a little bit of heat kind of at that time of year also. I mean, it was raining on race day this year, but 2 years ago, it was really warm. I just remember that. So, I mean, I don't want to say that I do anything like crazier out there because I really don't. I mean, I'm running 80 to 90 miles a week. And then I just do the leg matrix after basically every run, and then a set of push-ups and a 2-minute plank. And that's just kind of like the strength stuff that we did leading into American River. And then between American River and Quicksilver, there was, I think, 4 weeks, something like that, 4 or 5 weeks.
Pretty quick turnaround.
And and I mean, I recovered so well from American River that it was like, hey, well, we can start getting back into the training and we can put in some big weeks. And so in that time, I did a little bit of speed stuff. And then I also went up to Wisconsin to the Ice Age Trail and put in some pretty decent runs on the Ice Age Trail. And 2 weeks before Quicksilver, went up there for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and did back-to-back 20-mile runs, just focused on getting in elevation gain and more technical trail type stuff. So in that 60 miles, I got in like 11,000 feet of elevation gain that weekend, as just kind of the big, like, last harder effort before Quicksilver. And then like once, maybe twice a week, I'll get on the treadmill for like an hour power hike after like a Wednesday workout or something. But we just haven't really had to do a ton of like treadmill stuff because I've just been adapting to everything else so well.
Great. That's awesome. I'm also, of course, I want to talk about Quicksilver. How do you, I guess in that scenario, you know that you're approaching a race that has the potential to be pretty fast. The 50K, though, has a bunch of gain, will be a fast race. You've got guys like Rob Krar starting. You've got a lot of fast men and women starting the event. Plus the 100K, there's some good names that are racing that as well. When you approach these races, do you go into them with expectation or pressure on yourself, or are you still riding this wave of just learning? Like, are you still learning the distances, learning the speed, the balance, all that sort of thing? How are you approaching races like this with the caliber of runners that are in them?
So, I mean, I don't want to say that I'm not focused on results because, I mean, I like to win. Most people like to win. So, I mean, you go into a lot of these things wanting to win them. But at the same time, I know that coming from Illinois can be a slight disadvantage at times. But at the same time, I mean, sometimes I feel like people just don't necessarily think that I'm going to handle certain courses well. So that kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. But I don't know. I don't really feel pressure for it. I don't get nervous for them. I trust my training and I feel like I'm ready to run well on whatever course it may be.
Great. Love it. I want to remind everyone, we, of course, are live, and Kim has been in the chat room in addition to handling Gus, who's now looking at me like, Dad? But she's been pulling questions out of the chat room.
Been a lot of dog wrangling tonight.
There has been a lot of dog wrangling. He's sick. Our dog is sick, so he's been, like, super needy. But go ahead, Kim. Sorry. What do we got?
Yeah, there's a question from Ian Hurley in the chat room. Ian asked, Coree, regardless of what happens at Western States, what are your plans for the rest of the year?
That I don't necessarily know for sure. I know that I'm signed up for the Tunnel Hill 100. I will have a few other things in there. I might take a crack at running another fast marathon later this year, or I may just, I don't really know. Like, Western has been the big focus of the year. Just because, I mean, I didn't expect to get into Western. I had one ticket into the lottery. And so I kind of had a big, grand plan of what I thought I was going to do this year. And then I got into Western and all of a sudden that changed everything. But I'd like to run Badwater next year. So I'm pretty much focused on getting to the finish line of Western this year. I need to get another 100-mile finish in so I can apply for Badwater and then see where that takes me.
Nice. It seems that you're drawn to heat or heat-based. You mentioned Badwater. I'm like, anyone that wants to run Badwater, you have to like heat to some degree. Is that something you grew up with and like being able to deal with heat, or is it something that you are really good at, or your body is really good at, or is it something that you dread and therefore you want to like tackle it because it is something you want to get better at?
I love heat. I mean, growing up in Illinois, our summers here can be 105 degrees and humid. So I'm not a stranger to heat. Last year, I actually ran the Quad Cities Marathon like 2 weeks before the Chicago Marathon. And it was just funny because I wasn't supposed to run the marathon. And coach is like, okay, you're going there to run the half. Like, do a warm up, or run the half, and then do a longer cool down. And I was just having so much fun with it that I just, instead of like turning off for the half, I just kept on going to run the full marathon.
Wow.
And it was one of those days when it was 85 degrees, 85 and humid, in Illinois, in September. And I'm like, oh, this is really, really fun. Like, I totally enjoyed it. And so I don't know. I mean, I like heat.
Nice. You seem to do well in it. Like, all your results are incredible in races that have heat. Was Quicksilver hot this year for the most part?
I mean, started out decently cool. Like, I was actually kind of cool when I was doing my warm up, but once you got maybe 20K in, it started to warm up. So I mean, it was 78 to 81 or so.
Okay, so perfect Speedo weather.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was like, that has to be weather specific. Someone in the chat room's like, I can't imagine wearing the Speedo in like a winter ultra or anything. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a valid point.
There was also somebody in the chat room. Oh,
but I was gonna say, I think you have, right? Which one was that? And like, what was that like? as a guy, Corey, what was that like?
So that was the Frozen Gnome 10K that I did this year.
Oh, no.
Frozen Gnome. All right.
Yeah, it was January 13th, maybe, I think somewhere in that range. It was -1 at the start, I believe, and like 3 degrees at the finish or something like that. And so I had the crop top and a Speedo on, but I at least had like another layer on top. But I went with the Speedo on the bottom because I posted on Facebook like maybe 2 days before. I'm like, should I wear the Speedo or should I actually wear clothes? And everyone's like, Speedo.
Yeah, you're not going to get the result you want with that one.
Yeah. So I said, okay. So I actually doubled up the Speedos that day on the bottom just to kind of try to hold in some sort of heat, which didn't really help at all.
You did a smart wool Speedo with like a breathable sport Speedo over it.
Yeah. So it was funny. So I crossed the finish line and I'm like, I'm not too bad. Like, this is totally fine. No big deal. So then I got my coat and then all of a sudden I just couldn't stop shivering. So we went back to the car. We turned like the seat heaters on. We had the heat like all the way up in the car and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I'm still not warming up. So I had to go get coffee. And finally, with a little bit of coffee and the seat heaters and a giant coat, I started to warm up. But that was actually the first time I've ever had frostbite.
Oh, no.
And it was on my nose.
Of all
places.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a bit of cringe. I was like, oh, no. Okay, it's your nose. All right, good. So it got taken care of?
Yep.
Okay.
All is good.
Well, major props for anyone who would be willing to wear a Speedo in a race, let alone the Frozen Gnome. That did not sound pleasant, but you got it done. Congratulations. We have an interesting question here in the chat room that I'm glad it was asked. I think it's something that's relevant, obviously, and something that I feel like we can probably discuss. Kim?
Yeah, Rec Runner asked, Corey, how important is representation to you as a person of color in a predominantly white sport?
That's a great question. I feel like there isn't that much, I guess, in terms of people of color and ultra running, and I'd like to see that changing. But it's not only that there aren't necessarily more athletes represented, but we just need to find a way to get more people of color into the sport. Luckily, I've been given a platform recently with a lot of just talk about being a person of color and trail running and doing so well. And like I was saying, like, if there's somebody out there that would like to get into trail running and like you're in our area or whatever, like, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Like, if you have questions about something, I'm more than willing to try and answer them. And if I can't, then I mean, I might know somebody that can answer it or help them or even just set them up with somebody to go for a run. So
you have a dog too. I heard dog.
Yes, a giant dog. But yeah, I'd love to see more athletes of color be sponsored in the trail, mountain, ultra world. So here we are, just trying to do my thing and see what happens.
Well, what I think is great is that you're also making a name for yourself. You're crushing races. You're dominating the sport, and the races that you're entering, you're doing fantastic in. People are now knowing your name. You're like a talk of a lot of, especially the media. Like, there's been a lot of I know that you've done other podcasts and other interviews and stuff like that, but I love the attention that you're getting. Have you noticed a change in kind of social media interactions and stuff like that, or have you been approached or talked to by maybe younger runners who look up to you because of what you've done and what you are doing for the sport?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of that, actually. Like American River was the first time that things were like, oh, like, we should, like, let's talk to Coree a little bit. And so that was pretty cool. And the Trail Runner magazine article came out around that time, as did the Run Spirited article that came out. So there's a lot of stuff just all going on at once. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like, like there's a lot of people. Like, I've had messages from people from 8 different countries now contacting me after American River and both of those articles came out. And so that was pretty cool. I was excited about that. And then just, I mean, after Quicksilver, it was the same thing, just a like big, just rush of people. And and so one of the cool things about Quicksilver, actually, so we have a marathon in my hometown, and I've won it the past couple of years. But this year, there's a 17-year-old kid that ran 2:42, I believe, to win the marathon. And I raced him a few weeks back in one of my races leading up to Quicksilver. And he told me after the race, he's like, hey, I've been following you on Strava. Like, I'm going after your course record. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And Reese ran extremely well on a course that isn't flat. Like, I say Ottawa is flat all the time, but I mean, this course is not a flat marathon course. There's probably 400 feet of elevation gain in it. So for us, that's quite a bit for a road course anyway. But yeah, so it's kind of cool to see, you know, the younger kids. I mean, Reese is 17 and running extremely well. So, and one of his goals, like he really likes trail running. So it's just awesome to see that.
That's funny. We met a kid at Lake Sonoma that was also like at the finish line. He came up to us and he was introduced to us, and someone was like, "This kid is 15 and he just placed, I think it was like top 10 or something." And my mind kind of blew up for a second. It was like 16 years old, just running a 50. Like when I was 16, I was trying to figure out how to get out of bed in the morning. Like just like waking up was the difficult thing, let alone running 50 miles. So I couldn't believe it when that was introduced to me, and I can't even imagine what it's like for you to meet these kids who were probably inspired by you, inspired by your runs. Do you do any local outreach or anything like that? Like, are you able to get to high schools or local track meets or anything of that degree?
Yeah, so I'll go to some of our local track meets, cross-country meets. I'm decent friends with the high school track coach at the school now, so I mean, I always know when things are coming up. But I also go to like soccer games or baseball games or whatever if I'm in town. And then I try to do some of our local 5Ks and 10Ks and stuff, but it's just been so hard recently to fit certain things in, or I'm just not here. But yeah, so I mean, I try to be as active in our community as possible and just support the other local runners, and yeah.
Sweet. I mean, I love it. Also, you're young. You're in your 20s. As someone who's older than that, I look at you and the young generation that's entering the sport and changing the game. And we can look at all the men and women who are starting Western states that are predicted to do well. We can look at all the names and all the times and their resumes. And so many of them are so young and just so fast. Do you see the sport changing? I know, you know, you've been an ultra runner. Sorry, been an ultra runner for a couple years now, but you're probably familiar with the sport, some of its history. Do you see that sport changing? Do you see the young generation coming and continuing to change it and challenge it?
I think it's going to be a very interesting progression because you have just some of the older, just super solid dudes that, you know, like this is probably what they're going to run on that day. And it still places them pretty close to the top, you know. So they are there. And then you have a lot of these kids coming out of college. Well, they're not kids, but kids coming out of college.
We can call them kids. They're children.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, some of these dudes have like under 14 minutes for their 5K PR or like low 14s for the 5Ks and stuff. And like, I was never one of those people. I mean, my like mine was 15:20 for the 5K. And so like, if you just put me against some of those, I'm like, I'm still slower. But if you start adding, the distance, then all of a sudden, 50K is not 5K, or
Right.
50 miles is not 5K, and 100 miles is definitely not 5K.
Right.
So it does change it. And I think we're going to see I think we're still going to see a lot of these track college athletes come up and try to push the pace for a while. But in the end, I think it's still going to be longevity will win.
And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about next. Being a younger runner that's doing really well, just kind of where you see yourself evolving in the sport. But of course, before we get to that, we do have live questions. Kim, what do we got?
Yeah, there's a great question from Nathaniel in the chat room. Nathaniel asks, do you fear the increased media exposure could lead to unrealistic expectations or pressure? If so, how do you temper those demands?
Great question.
Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, for me on social media, like, that's just who I am. Like, I don't change anything, haven't changed anything, whatever. So, honestly, I feel like I'm just going to kind of keep on doing my thing. And if people like me, that's great. If they don't like me, that's not my problem. So yeah, I mean, like, even going into Western this year, I thought I was just going to go in and kind of like run the race and there you go and be done with it. Because like when I first got into Western, like I was like, there's no way that I'm going to even be, up front. Like, this is just not realistic. Like, I'm still in Illinois. There's like 2 feet of snow on the ground. This is not even going to be that fun training for it. And it turns out I've loved every minute of training for it. And I've been running pretty well in the lead up to it. So now it's more just go in and have some fun and see what happens.
I mean, if there's any proof in elevation and where you live not mattering, Casey Lichtai is a perfect example,
Yes.
who we've had on the show, and I know you know who Casey is.
Yep.
Training at essentially zero on flat terrain and using, I think she used one hill near her house.
Like a 100-foot hill or
100-foot
200-foot
hill,
or
and she would do
something like
repeats on it. So it's possible, right? Like, it's totally possible. It doesn't matter where you train as long as it's training smart. And what I love is that you're super positive, and I don't doubt for a second you're going to enjoy every second of states, no matter what, right? And I think that says more to you as an athlete and to those of us who follow and spectate you as athletes. I think that's going to be awesome. That's why I can't wait for states. There's always the hoopla, right? There's always the media attention on a couple individuals, and there's no doubt. Like, we know the Coconuni Cowboys are going to do great things there. I can't not say that because it's obvious. But at the same point, I'm like, it's going to be the Corees. It's going to be the individuals that people know of, but maybe aren't looking at directly. As like, they're going to do some really cool things there. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Again, we still have some more questions. I realize I'm going off on a complete tangent. Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, a question from Jesse in the chat room. Jesse asks, did you learn anything from racing Rob Krar that might help with Western States?
Let's talk about your interaction with Rob Krar.
Yeah.
How was that? Like, what went down? Krar is like that magical guy that kind of cryptic guy lives under a rock. No one gets a chance to talk to him. What was that like?
Yeah, so I didn't even know he was going to be racing until like Thursday or Friday before. I was like scrolling through the entrant list one more time, and I'm like, that name was not on there before. Like,
I would have noticed that, yeah.
Yes, it's like, okay. And it was just super funny. So at the start line, like, I had gone off and done my warm up and everything, and so we're at the start line, and then I see like Chris Tanuki there and say hey to him, and then like Rob was just standing somewhere around, and then he just casually walks up and introduces himself, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Rob." And I'm like, I know who you are. Like, but and so okay, like, okay, whatever, like, no big deal. I knew he was gonna be here, so here it is. So we take off at the start. And the first climb is like an 1,100-foot climb or something in maybe 3 miles. And I was in 10th, 12th, something like that. Like, I took my time getting up that first hill because I knew it was going to be a longer day. But I get to the top of the hill and I'm like, feeling pretty good. So I can start pushing it on this downhill, which is not an actual downhill. It's more of like a little bit of a flat section before you start climbing again. Didn't see that on the elevation profile, but whatever. So,
Quicksilver.
but it's like they had like a pack of 5 or so up front, and I could see them, and I'm like, I should probably just push a little bit and get into this pack, because then I'll have people to work with, or I'm at least just not going to get left behind. So I finally made it in there, maybe 3.5 miles in or so. And then, I don't know, maybe 10K in, Rob and I just kind of started pulling away on one of the, I guess it would be a downhill. And so then I got to run with him until mile 15. But the interesting thing about that was I got to see, like, when he decides to run, when he decides to power hike, when he's going to kind of do like a mix of both. So in that moment, like, there's a lot of just miles shared where it's like, oh, well, if Rob is power hiking this, then I should probably be power hiking it on some of the sections that I even thought that I could run, where I'm like, nah, let's hold back a little bit. But then you have Chris, on the other hand, where he can just power up anything. Like,
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen him power hike. He just goes. So it's very interesting to see the two different styles, but I got to learn a lot that way. And then, so Rob pulled away from me at about mile 15 on just one of these nasty uphills again. And then just he kept a little bit of a gap on me to the finish. But, I mean, I felt really good about it.
Dude, a result like that is incredible on that course. It's not a super fast course because of the gain, and sometimes the heat can play a role. I love hearing that you were able to make what was essentially a training run into a learning experience as well, where you're able to watch guys like Rob, who has won states and is obviously an accomplished
incredibly
runner.
seasoned.
Yeah, and Danucci, who's the exact same, has done well, has placed top 10, goes back to states year after year. That's awesome, Corey. Like, it's great to use that as learning tool, so you can look at how you can race better. And that's why I'm looking at Corey as like, he's gonna do something. My money is on you, Corey. No pressure, but it's a lot of money. And if you don't do well, we lose our house. We don't own it. It's just a rental.
We lose our rental.
We lose our rental. That's how much pressure. So no pressure. But no, I love that. Like, being able to decipher when they're power hiking, when they're running, when they're putting out the energy. One thing I remember about Krar is North Face 50 miler a couple years ago. He was doing the power hike run thing, power hiking up, running down until the last 10 miles, I think, when I remember he just took off. He just started running all the ups and just left everyone in the dust. So there's like that element of leaving a little bit of gas in the gas tank. So
yes, well, that was him at like mile 15 when he just made a decisive move on one of the uphills, and it's like, oh.
There it is.
Just because I'm like, I'm not going with this one. I'm like, I hope I'm going to catch him on that final downhill, because, like, I mean, I knew that if I'd have made a move then, that I would have been walking probably the last 5 miles of that course.
I will say, with the result, like, second place, right behind Rob Krar by, oh man, I'm looking at the 4 minutes, like minutes. You could cut that down to seconds. Second place at Quicksilver 50K. Corey, that's incredible. A huge, huge congratulations to you, man. I can't wait to see what you do at States, dude. Are you excited? I'm assuming you're excited. You excited?
Yeah, so I'm super thrilled for Western States. I'm going out for training camp this weekend.
Sweet.
So I'm pretty excited for that. And I'm actually driving out, and I'm leaving on Wednesday, and I'm going to be staying out there until after States.
Oh,
wow.
That's great. So you're actually going to be in the area for quite a while.
Yeah, because, I mean, I've literally never run one step of the Western States course. So I'll get to see, the last 70 miles of it this Memorial Day weekend. But I want to see the course. I want to know it. Like, I really want to know it.
That's awesome, man. We'll have to check in with you, obviously, after the event. But keep us posted, like, how that training goes. Not only camp this weekend, which is always fun. It's just so much fun. There's going to be people of all walks of life and abilities out there. It's a fantastic weekend. The weather's supposed to be good, too, which is nice. But the fact you'll be there for a long time, that's even better. That's going to be great, man.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it.
Sweet. When do you get your Speedo? When do you get your race Speedo?
Well, I haven't decided what I'm going to wear this time, because I have probably 5 different ones that I kind of rotate through, but I think I'm going to switch it up a little bit for Western this year. So,
I can't wait. I have all these ideas.
I know. I was just thinking. I was like, oh man.
I was like, it's gonna have bells, or it's gonna have like antlers.
Bells.
I was like, I don't know, bells. Bells wouldn't make sense.
Bells and antlers.
Christmas
That's where you
Eve.
go.
I don't know. That's where my mind is going. My mind is like, man, what can you do with the Speedo that would make it like
bells and
really
antlers,
stand
obviously.
out?
Yeah.
Headlamp. Is it gonna have a built-in headlamp?
Oh, now that would be pretty cool. Like,
Rabbit, I know you're watching. Rabbit, can we get an integrated like Petzl now with a battery pack? Wow.
There you go.
I'm so glad the conversation went back here. Okay, Coree. It has been awesome to have you on the show. We are, of course, going to do a post show with Coree, so we'll be able to ask all the questions that didn't. There's a bunch here, and there will always be more. So we'll have Coree for the post show. We'll be able to ask the questions that didn't get asked during the main show. We will also be giving away a race entry to one of our Patreon supporters who entered our contest. We're giving away a Skyline to See race entry for the PCTR trail races. It's a 50K or marathon entry, which is a race that comes up in the fall. It's already sold out. Runs through the Redwoods. If you've entered, you are going to love it if you win. So we're going to announce the winner here in the post show. But before we move on to that, Coree, there's a couple things that we'd like to do. One, I want to know where people can follow you on social media. And then two, we're going to do the Quickie question quiz, which is something we do with all of our first-time guests. So first of all, where can people find you on social media? Where can they follow up after show, maybe ask questions that didn't get asked?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. I mean, you can add me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. And then I have a blog, but I don't really update it as much as I should. So that's probably not your best source of up-to-date information. But Facebook and Instagram are both Coree Woltering. And then my Twitter is GCXC13, Greenville College Cross Country 13. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so this is something we do with all of our first-time guests. It's called the Quickie Question Quiz. It's very easy. It's a rapid-fire series of questions. You just got to answer with the first thing that comes to your head. You let me know when you're ready by giving me a thumbs up, and we'll just start ripping through. Here we go. What was your very first race?
My first race was a race across the church parking lot with my grandpa when I was about 7 years old, and I thought that I was fast, and he thought he was faster than I was. So he did beat me across the parking lot, but when I got there, I said, well, we have to go back, and so I beat him on the way back.
What's your favorite place to run currently?
The Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin, more the southern unit part, yeah.
This will be a good one for you. Road or trails?
Road marathon trail, 50 miles.
Bucket list race?
Badwater, yeah.
God, there's so few people who say Badwater.
But I also feel like lately we've had
a
few people that are actually running Badwater that was shocking to us.
Yeah, Sally McRae, Yassine DeBoon. Yeah, we've got a handful of people who've been on the show recently who are running Badwater. Have you crewed or thought about crewing?
I have not crewed. I've thought about crewing. There's just so much going on this year that it probably won't work out.
Yeah,
but
it's a commitment.
Yeah.
Favorite running movie?
I don't know. I don't think I have one, actually.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
Weeds.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. That's the first time we've heard Weeds. Did we finish that series? I forget. Yes. We did finish it. We just recently.
I think I've watched the whole series like 2 or 3 times now, easily.
Pre-race meal?
A burger and fries with a beer.
Post-race indulgence?
Burger, fries,
a burger and fries and a beer.
That sounds very similar to us.
Yeah, same. Do you have like a post-race indulgence tradition or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, we just find, like whatever brewery is in town and hopefully they have food and go there, or a winery. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. So yeah. I don't know. Like I would say something like ice cream, but I eat ice cream every day. So,
so it's not even it's not specific to racing.
It's no different.
And finally, what are your current running kicks? What are the shoes that you are going to grab?
Well, I run for Innovate at the moment, so I run in a lot of theirs. I'll be doing Western in the Rock Light series, or maybe the Trailer Rock series. I haven't decided which of those yet, but I'll be out there this weekend, so I'll be able to figure that out.
Awesome. Congratulations, Corey. You passed.
Yay.
Yay.
The easiest quiz. So that's it. Thank you so much, Corey, for joining us on tonight's episode of Ginger Runner Live. You rock, man. Again, we're big fans. We can't wait to follow you at States and beyond. I know that you have... I looked at your ultrasound, but of course you have like 7 to 10.
There's some things on there.
There's some things on there. Obviously, you've got a lot
Yeah.
coming up. And I know that you can probably add things as they come along, but we're Corey fans, so congratulations, man. I can't wait to see what you do in Squaw.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You got it. And for everyone who is watching live, of course, let me just pop. There we go. Make sure you go follow Corey on social media. I know that I had his Twitter link up there, but he's on Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. Thank him for being on the show. He's obviously a great guest, super knowledgeable. We will have him here for a couple minutes in the post show. So if you are a Patreon supporter, consider joining us for that post show. If you are not a Patreon supporter, consider doing so. It's $1 a month. It's super minimal, fraction of the cost of a cup of coffee, but it does obviously help the channel, and you do get some cool perks on the back end. That is it for tonight's show. Am I forgetting anything?
I think that's all.
I think that is it. Where Dreams Go to Die, the feature-length movie that I did following Gary Robbins' 2 attempts at the Barkley Marathons, that will be dropping on the YouTube channel next Friday. Not this coming Friday, but the Friday after. This Friday will be a real fun video. I'm very excited about it. It's kind of funny. But next Friday will be Where Dreams Go to Die. So you watching here live are the first to know this, know exactly when the drop date is going to be for the public, for all to consume for free. So tell people, tell your friends, tell your family. You'll be able to get it. That's pretty much it. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. We'll see you in the post show. That's it. Bye.
Bye.